All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We're here with Amber Dawn Nutrition, and she's going to be talking about the anti-meal plan. And Amber, I'll let you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I am so happy to be here. I am so excited to share this information with you because I feel like, who couldn't use a little bit of help with just planning and prepping food at home? Like, we all are under stress. We all have things we're doing. And this is one of the the hardest, like, sore points when clients come to work with me. So I'm excited to share. So I'm actually going to go ahead and share my screen. There's a presentation here, but we don't have a very large group. So I'd love for you guys to be interactive. If you have a question, feel free to unmute. You can put it in the chat. I do have the chat open. We can run this as a little bit more of a conversation style if you want. Of course, you can wait to the end to ask questions, but I will go ahead and get my screen going here. Okay. Can you guys see this? The name of the presentation? Okay, I got a thumbs up. Amazing. All right, well, the goal of this is for you to all feel like you didn't waste your time tonight, that you got at least like a couple nuggets that you really feel are applicable to your life, your lifestyle, your needs, that will help you, meet whatever food goals you have at home. If it's cooking more at home, if it's just eating a little bit healthier, my intention is for you to feel a little bit more empowered when you walk away from this call tonight. So with that, let's go ahead and dig right in. So we're going to be talking about my meal planning method. It's called the anti-meal planning method because I want it to feel easy and flexible and not like a stressful event. But first, I want to talk about like where this came from. And I am a mom, and I have a picture of my kids on the next slide, but they are 6 and 8. But when the pandemic happened, they were 5 and 2. And when the first lockdown happened, I was like, gonna be like the most amazing mom and cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner and like have all this stuff ready to go. I was feeling good about it, but as you can see, like by day 3, by a week in, I was so stressed out. I did end up getting shingles during the pandemic because I just felt like I couldn't keep up with anything. Stress took over. It was just bad. So I needed a way to take the edge off, to like make it easy. Like, how can we make this process of feeding our kids and ourselves in a healthy way easy? And so that's where the anti-meal planning method came into play. Yeah. How many of you like have kiddos? Do any of you guys have kids? Raise your hand or put in the chat. No?
No.
Okay. Well, regardless of what you're doing at home, like this is going to be, or if you're cooking for just yourself, or if you're cooking for a family, if you're cooking for others, like all of these steps are going to be helpful in just like simplifying things. So before we get into the tips though, I want to just give you a little bit of background in case you're new to me. I am Amber Frauenholz. I am the owner of Amber Dawn Wellness. I am a nutritional therapy practitioner and restorative wellness practitioner. So what does that mean? I am a functional nutritionist. Women come to me and they are experiencing all kinds of symptoms. I specialize in women's health. So hormone imbalances, they might be having issues with their gut health. They might just be burned out or overwhelmed. They come in, we do a bunch of data analysis up front. So I run labs in my practice. We get blood work done. We do stool testing for gut health. We do hormone testing. And then I pull that all together to create a food, lifestyle, and supplement-based protocol to help bring whatever was out of balance, back into balance. Then I support them in those changes. So that's what I do in my day-to-day practice, but I am also obsessed with Disney World. That's like a little fun fact about me. So if anyone wants to talk about Disney, I'm here for it. And then I am a mom. I have 2 little boys. You can see them here. This is a couple of years old, this picture, but James is 8 and Griffin is 6, and they are who I'm cooking for all the time. Okay, so before we jump in, I want to have a little interaction from you guys, and you can put this in the chat or you can unmute, but I want you to answer this question. Like, why is meal planning hard? Like, what makes it hard? What is the biggest roadblock for you? Like, what's hard about it?
I'm living alone right now, and I love to cook for other people. I'm really not that excited about cooking for myself, and that makes it hard for me.
Yeah. Yep.
For
Was that some
me,
in the chat? Oh, go ahead.
for me, it's more like that before, during, and after, I try to keep my kitchen clean, and it's overwhelmed. So I got just tired and frustrated.
Yeah.
And I go ahead and make some meals over the weekend, but just knowing that the kitchen is gonna end dirty, it's frustrating sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else?
Britta said that she has a hard time cooking for one, so she tends to have a lot of food waste at the end of the week and just feels
Yeah.
really guilty about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's rough. And then I see one from Paula, grocery shopping is hard, foods expire at different rates. Yeah, that's hard too. I feel you guys on this. Like it's not easy. And some of the other, common things I see in clients are schedules. Like schedules just shift. Some things are unpredictable. You plan a perfect week of food and then it goes to waste because your schedule changed. Also, it's a new habit that like don't have fully formed, and whenever you're creating a new habit, you just don't want to do it, right? So this feeling of like, I don't want to do it. Like, I don't know why, I just don't want to do it. And then the other thing that I think why it's so hard is because we have this belief that if we're going to plan for the week ahead, it has to be perfect. Like, it has to be perfect. It has to fit this like ideal we have in our head. And then we're going to fall short of perfection because there is no such thing like as being perfect. And when that happens, you feel bad about it. And you're like, why did I even try this? What's the point? And you give up. But we're going to talk about ways to push past all of those things that we just talked about, because it is so beneficial to have a plan in place, right? It makes you more consistent in the food that you're eating. It saves you money in the long run if you're able to plan and then actually cook the food that you planned. It saves on food waste if you're able to like keep up with that. It does reduce stress, right? So it kind of gets you out of that like last minute scramble in the kitchen, like, oh my God, I don't know what to make. You're like saving stress from your future self. And it is healthier to eat more at home, right? Like that's kind of step one to making any lifestyle change like this is like, well, I just need to eat more food that's prepared at home. That is like a whole food base, right? So this is the way to do that. Okay. So with that, let's get into the nitty gritty here. Y'all can absolutely take notes if you want, but like I said, at the end of the presentation, there's a little QR code. You can just take your phone and scan it, and it will bring up a Google form. You put your email in, and tomorrow I'll send you out the workbook that goes along with this presentation. And it has basically everything in here. Plus, I'm going to be adding in, I have a PDF called My Favorite Things, and it's like my favorite recipes, my favorite products, all those goodies. So just know that that is available. Okay, so the anti-meal plan method is all about planning without the pressure. Okay, that's the goal here. And there are 5 key components to this process. And like I mentioned before, we're really going to be focusing in on the actual process of meal planning and less on, well, what should I be eating, right? Because it is bio-individual, that myth that I busted at the beginning. What you should be eating, the answer to that is different for everybody. So it's hard to really say like, do this, that, or that. Of course, there are basic like recommendations, and we'll get into some of that here, but this is really going to be intended to help you make that planning process easier. You're welcome to ask me questions at the end of this about nutrition if you want. Okay, so there's 5 things we're going to talk about. Number 1, lay the foundation. 2, stock up. 3, mindset. 4, plan. And then 5, of course, we're going to repeat and refine. So let's get into step 1 here. Lay the foundation. All right, so I want to ask you guys a question before we get into this actual concept. Who here has come across a recipe online or like in a cookbook and you freaking loved it and you're like, I'm eating this every day for the rest of my life, and you make it repeatedly for like a month, and after that you're like, oh, I'm tired of this, and you like get rid of it, and then you totally forget about it even existed? Yeah, I see some hands raised. Okay. This is such a common thing. I used to do this all the time. The bad part is, or like the sad part is, if you forget about those, then you can't remember and ever make them again, right? So that's what laying the foundation is all about. It's creating a living archive of the things that you like to eat, and making sure it's put somewhere that you can easily access. Because one of the reasons why people hate meal planning is the decision fatigue, right? Like, I don't know what to cook. I don't know what to make. How do I find these recipes? Well, if you have a list of things that you know you like, then you can just pull that up and be like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that this week. So that's what this is all about. And this is going to be more than just like recipes that you found online, right? This could actually be cookbook recipes. And I do recommend, we're living in a modern time. There are some amazing apps out there for you to create an archive for yourself. You don't have to do this with pen and paper. I think it is easier with an app. The one pictured on the screen is called Paprika Recipe Manager. But there are lots of other options out there. I mean, there's tons. And with this particular one, this screenshot is of my Paprika app. You can take create your own recipes and take a picture. So I take a picture of my recipe books. And if I like it, I take a picture, I upload it here, and then I put the page number in the details. And that way I have an archive of, oh, I like that recipe from this recipe book. It's on page 189 or whatever. You can hear my kid in the background screaming. I'm sorry. He's yelling for his dad. Anyways, so also this is going to be more than, like I said, just plain recipes. Think about the one component meals you like. Like, do you like to have hot dogs and tater tots and frozen veggies? Like, is that something that you repeat often? Okay, great. Let's write it down as one of your archival recipes, right? And this will change over time. As you discover new things, we want to make sure we're always updating this archive, this foundational list. So before we leave this slide, I would love for you guys to put in the chat, like, what would be one of your foundation recipes? Like, what do you make all the time that would be one of those fallbacks that you'd want to put in your list?
I make lentil stew a lot. I think it's really
Ooh.
good.
Awesome. Who else? Somebody pop in. Put it in the chat if you don't want to unmute.
I guess lean chili. Try to add like corn, not just beans, but corn and other vegetables, peppers.
Awesome. I see in the chat too, we've got forever making chicken, rice, and mixed veggies as an easy go-to. That sounds amazing. Rustic Italian soup. That sounds amazing. I might need these recipes. Yeah, so I challenge you when we get off this call, well, maybe not tonight, but at some point, sit down and carve out 5 minutes and just brainstorm. Like, what do you like to make? What have you made repeatedly? And let's get it written down so that, you know, you can then upload it into an app or start a notebook or something if you want to do it with pencil and paper. All right. Oh, I also see turkey, Brussels sprouts, and peppers. Yeah, that sounds awesome too. Okay, so that's laying the foundation. You guys all feel good with that concept? Cool. Next. Okay, so the next concept is stock your freezer and pantry. All right, so the anti-meal plan method is all about flexibility and ease. And part of building flexibility into a meal plan is not planning every little thing, right? We don't want to plan every breakfast, lunch, or dinner because that is way too much work and we can't live up to that. That would be like perfectionist, thinking. So we want to make sure we have things around to fill in the gaps. If there's a night where you don't have something planned, we want to make sure there's easy things available to you to create a complete dish, just always in your kitchen. That's what this is all about. Or to add to a dish, right? So maybe you plan something and then you have something in the pantry you can add to it to like beef it up. Like, we've got some frozen veggies or something. So what do you store in your freezer and pantry? What do you always have on hand? One ingredient items are something that I recommend you think about. So that's going to be like a bag of frozen broccoli, right? That's one ingredient. Or like hot dogs that you put in the freezer that you can de-thaw quickly, or sausages or something. Those are just like one ingredient things that you can combine together to create a meal. Flavor boosters are things we always want to have on hand, because if you're going to eat really simply and not stress yourself out, then how can we elevate our food without making it hard? So that would be things like curry and sauces and spice mixes and, ketchup and condiments and that kind of stuff. Mixed component items. So luckily, we live in a time where there are actually a lot of great options at the grocery store. If you walk up and down the freezer aisle, you'll find like fully complete like meal kits or like a frozen dinner. That's what I'd call like a mixed component option. Meal prepped items. So of course, if you are someone who meal preps, you can make something and then freeze it and put it in your freezer. And what we're going to do with these are create full or partial meals, right? So I've got some examples here. So in my kitchen, I always have a jar of marinara. I have some high protein pasta and I have some frozen veggies. Like they're always just around because I never know when my kids won't want to eat something I've cooked, or I don't feel like making the thing that I meal planned, or plans fell through and I need to have something like done like super fast. So that's always there. An old classic for me, especially from my early postpartum days, are like high quality hot dogs, frozen veggies, and canned soup, and just like mixing those things together. That's actually like a pretty complete meal, and you can have that on hand. And then of course, like taco stuff, having taco seasoning, and then, you know, beans, tortillas, that kind of stuff, always on hand. I have a hot tip at the bottom. One of my favorite sources of getting pantry items is something called Thrive Market, which is, it's an online retailer for groceries where you can get high quality foods at a discount. It's kind of like an online Costco of sorts. I love Thrive Market, and that's where I get most of my pantry staples. So, okay, any questions or thoughts on this concept, stocking your freezer and pantry? We're good? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, awesome. Let's go to the next one. Okay, mindset. So this is not really a thing that you can, you know, stock in your freezer or whatever, but this is actually a very important component to any lifestyle change, of course, but meal planning especially, because, you know, we think of meal planning as a chore, like thinking about what you're going to eat for the week and all of that. It's a chore. It doesn't feel fun, but we really want to reframe that as self-care. Because what it is self-care, right? It is taking stress from future you away. Like you're going to be so grateful that past you sat down and did this process. Like it's just going to feel like a hug. So we want to reframe it as self-care. And if we're thinking about it in that way, then that also means we're going to treat it that way. So put it on your calendar, right? Make it easier by scheduling a time every week where you know you're going to sit down at least for a few minutes, you know, create a little plan, think about what you want to have in your freezer or your fridge for breakfast, stuff like that. I love to ritualize this. So every Friday afternoon, that's when I do my planning for the week ahead before I leave work, before I like transition into home life. I take that last little bit on Friday and I do my meal planning, and I order my first round of groceries, which we'll talk about that process here in a moment. And, you know, you can make this really fun though. Like you can go and like get a mocktail ready, get your sparkling water, go get your cookbooks, bring them out, like make this an event and something that you're going to honor, put on your calendar. Another mindset component, ditch perfectionism, because perfection in food does not exist. I mean, we drive ourselves insane trying to be perfect in all things. We're women, we get that cultural message shoved down our throats all the time, but perfection is not serving anyone. And the truth is, like, any amount of prep or thought you put into this is going to pay off in the long run, right? You don't have to be perfect with it. So that's the whole point of the anti-meal plan method, is to plan for not being perfect. All right, so we're ditching perfectionism. Now we're going to get into a concept around not overthinking. Okay, so simplifying things. And I like to use the acronym like KISS. So keep it simple and straightforward. This permeates through all of the things that I do with my clients. We just want to keep things very simple and straightforward, make it easy. And so if you're sitting there one day and you're like, I have no idea what the hell I want to cook tonight or put on my meal plan, well, then just remember, I think that Amber chick told me to keep things really simple. So how do you do that? Well, you just pick a protein, you pick some veggie, you pick a carb, and that's it, right? That's your dinner. You're keeping it super simple and straightforward. So I have a picture here. And this is a plate, right? And we work sort of clockwise around the plate. And we first want to identify the source of protein. that we're going to be cooking. And this could be plant-based protein, could be, you know, animal meat, whatever. So for this example, we'll just say like chicken thighs. Okay, well, how do I want to cook that chicken thigh? I have an air fryer. That's super easy. I'll just throw them in the air fryer. I've got some seasoning mixes in my pantry. Just do that. What am I going to fill the rest of my plate up with? Which is fiber-rich carbohydrates. So these are things like veggies, okay? But it's also like brown rice and starches like sweet potatoes and plantains, things like that. We just want to have some fiber on the plate. So, hey, I've got some frozen veggies in the freezer. I got a bag of mixed veggies. That checks that box off. Fat, we talked about healthy fats in the beginning. This is just making sure you're getting that, you know, 1 to 3 tablespoons of healthy fat represented at mealtime. You're not going to have trouble with this if you're cooking with oil, right? If you've got olive oil, you're doing avocado oil, or maybe that bag of frozen veggies, you need to put some seasoning on there, right? Because you don't want to have it taste gross. So you put some butter on there, and that's a little bit of your fat.
Is
And
that
then
1 to 3 tablespoons of fat per meal or per day?
per meal.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Yep. And then cravings. So there's always room for cravings. We just want to start clockwise and go around the circle before we get to cravings. So we're making sure our nutrition needs are checked off. We got our protein, we got our veggies, we got a little bit of our healthy fats. And now, hey, if I want to have a cookie, I'm going to have that with my meal. If I want to have some French fries or, you know, whatever you consider to be craving, then that can fill up that place. Super simple, right? Keeping it simple, super straightforward. Does that make sense? Okay. I'm seeing head shaking. All right. Okay, so now we've made it to like actual planning part of the process. All of that was set up. We got our foundations list going. We have our archives so that we can reduce our decision fatigue. We have our pantry and our freezer stocked with stuff. We have our mindset in a good place. We are looking at this as self-care. So now we're actually planning. So your calendar went off, your session has arrived, you grab your little mocktail, you got your cookbooks, whatever around you. So now what do we do? Step number 1 is I always check the weather and I always check the calendar for the next week. So what we're going to do is we're going to plan for 7 days out. So if I plan on Friday afternoon, then I'm looking, you know, from Friday to the next Friday morning, essentially. Why do I check the weather? Well, you don't have to check the weather, but we like to grill a lot. So if I'm going to plan like grilled chicken or something, like I want to know if it's going to be rainy, or if it's really cold, I might not want to, you know, plan on having like a lot of salads or like cold dishes. I might want to have stews or something. So I think it's useful. But the more useful thing is to look at the calendar. Like remind yourself what is happening next week. Do I have events after work? Do I have like short transitions where I need to drive places? Like, will I have time for lunches? Like just really get a good grasp of what that's going to potentially look like, knowing that you're building flexibility into the plan. Next, we want to remind yourself that we have stuff in our pantry, fridge, and freezer, and make sure you know what those things are. Because it's really easy to forget like what's in there when you go through this process. So I do it all the time. And then it's time to plan, right? So number 1, I like to think about breakfast first. Like, what do you want to eat for breakfast kind of throughout the week? And again, we're not going to pick something for every single day unless you really feel called to do that. We want to start small, get this muscle built up and stronger, and then you can start planning more and more and more. But for right now, like pick 1 or 2 things that you'd want to eat for breakfast, and you can have those every day. You know, like maybe it's overnight oats, or you're planning on having, you know, scrambled eggs with toast, or just whatever it may be, so that you have that available for you in your fridge, right? Then we skip lunches, we go to dinners. And I think that especially if you're new to this process, start off with a low bar and be like, I'm going to plan like 2 things for the next week. On the days that make the most sense. And then on the other days, I will eat from my fridge and pantry because I know it's stocked full of all these amazing 1 ingredient things, right? Or on the upper end side of things, you could plan like a bunch more dinners, but it's just kind of like where you're at in your journey, right? Remember, these can be from your foundations list, right? So you don't have to come up with new stuff all the time. I have a rule where every week I pick at least 1 or 2 things from my foundations list because I don't want to think about new things all the time. Like it just keeps it simple. Then we think about lunches because when you're planning dinners, we want to try to think of things that you can make a lot of so that you can eat it multiple times for lunches. Leftovers for lunches is like king. I mean, it saves you so much time, energy, all the things if you can just eat leftovers most of the time for your lunch. I know people don't love that sometimes, so it's kind of, up to you, a personal preference, but other lunch things you can do that would be super easy are things like spending 30 to 40 minutes prepping on the weekend and just making some shredded chicken, like throwing chicken breast in the oven, shred it, have it ready to go, make some rice, and then have some like frozen veggies you can add, or like a salad kit that you could add with that. And then having some sauces and like seasonings, right, that you can add on top and just making a bowl. And then you can repeat that day in and day out kind of thing for a week. All right. So here's where we get into the food waste thing. This is my tip for that. So once we have our plan in place, and the picture you see on the left of the screen, that is my Paprika app, right? That's me meal planning. That's a screenshot from a while ago, but you get the idea. Once we have it ready to go, in my session on Friday afternoon, okay, I'm now going to order groceries for the next 2 days, 2 to 3 days max. That's it, right? I only shop in 2 to 3 day increments. And yeah, it's easy to order if you do it online. A lot of people like to go in the store still, so this might not be quite as convenient. But what this does is it builds flexibility into the meal plan, right? So if you're only buying the food to execute on days 1 and 2, or maybe 3, then if something happens and you don't make the meal on day 2, then you just shift that over to like days 3 and 4, and then you boot off the thing that you had planned for days 3 and 4, right? So it just keeps the flexibility built in there. And then we execute. Okay, so we've got some other little juicy nuggets here to cover about planning. All right, I already mentioned this, but always scan that foundations list first when you're going through this process. We want to make it easy. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, then just pick things that you've already made before that you know you like, and just be done with it, because that's it. Good is good enough. You can slot in new recipes if you like, or you can take the kids approach. And that's, again, just pick a protein, pick some veggies, cook it in some fat, and maybe have something else like as a craving along with it, and you're done. Easy peasy. Again, just don't overcomplicate it. Really try to fight the urge to be like, I have to make this gourmet thing all the time. If you want to, by all means, you should, but it doesn't have to be that way. We can keep it very simple. Wing it. All right, wing it. So what the hell could wing it mean? This is a thing that I put on my meal plans. It's a placeholder. So if I'm not going to plan something for a certain day or meal, I'll just put the words wing it. And I know I'm going to be cooking from my pantry or my freezer, or I'm going to be doing a combo of the two, or I'm going to be eating leftovers, right? So I'm just winging it from the things I know are there. And that's why it's really important to keep those pantries and freezers stocked full of just options, right? So next time you're at the grocery store, make a game out of it. Like always look at the freezer aisle, see if there's new healthy things that you could buy. Look around at the new stuff. They're coming out with new stuff all the time. Kid-friendly components on hand. So I know not many of you have kids, but this can be a huge issue, right? Because you're not just planning for yourself, you're planning for these kids who are super picky. I have my 8-year-old never eats what we eat, and it's beyond frustrating because I'm a nutritionist for a living and it just drives me insane. But what you do to combat this is I don't plan for him. I'm sorry, I'm planning for me because I'm the most important person when it comes to my self-care. And that's what I recommend my clients do, right? If you want to make health changes, really just focus in on your habits, yourself, and everyone else, like they can come along for the ride or not, right? So your kids just have those friendly components for them on hand at all times. For my kids, what does that look like? It looks like fruit, all different forms of fruit. I always have that available. They will always eat avocado toast. So I have like bread and avocados around. My older son will always eat chicken nuggets, like, stuff to make quesadillas. And I I offer them the healthy food that I'm making. If they don't want it, that's fine. They have something safe that they can eat, and it wasn't very hard for me to make. Does that make sense? Cool. Eat the fridge Fridays. Okay. Sorry. I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you guys. I just want to give you all the like hacks that I use. Eat the fridge Fridays is one of my favorite meal planning hacks, in that I never plan meals for Friday evenings. Never, never, never. It's always just leftovers or whatever the heck's in the fridge, right? So I open the fridge and it's an adventure. Choose your own adventure. I don't prepare things for my husband. I don't prepare anything for anyone. I make my kids eat frozen pizzas on Eat the Fridge Fridays, and we just eat up the leftover food. And that is also how you save on food waste. They love it. My kids love it, because who doesn't love a good frozen pizza? But I also let them watch TV on Friday nights. Like, that is their, like, they love that. So it can really become like this fun event, and it's less stress for you. Always remember that leftovers are your friend, right? So if you are meal planning, like doubling recipes, casseroles, roast, things that can be eaten as just a leftover or repurposed into another meal. You know, for example, if you make a shredded like pork butt or like a pork shoulder in the crock pot, you can use that in so many different ways. Like the first night you can have it just on its own with sweet potatoes or something. The second night you can make tacos with the filling. The third night you could put an Asian like coconut aminos like sauce on top and have it with rice and vegetables. Like, you can repurpose those things and again cut down complexity. 2 more tips before we get to the last step. So number 1, check in every morning. This is just a great habit to get into if you want to be a pro meal planner. Like, really work on building this muscle in that, you know, habit stack it with your morning routine. Like, if you're in your kitchen in the morning, maybe set an alarm for the first week or so and just remind yourself to check the meal plan, because we want to just make sure, like, are we on plan? Do we know what we're making tonight? Do I need to take something out of the freezer? Do I need to marinate something? Do I need to turn the crock pot on? We just want to check in, and then we can also adjust, right, if things need to change in the morning. And then lastly, if you do want to reduce complexity, I do recommend meal prepping just a little bit, like 1 or 2 items every 2 to 3 days, really. That's it. And these can be small things, like Sunday, I might make 2 to 3 servings of overnight oats for breakfast. And then on Wednesday, I might repeat that and do it again. So that would be meal prepping something every 2 to 3 days. And it just takes a little bit of the load off. Also, if you're already in your kitchen cooking something, why not cook something else at the same time, right? Because you're already dirtying stuff. So if I'm cooking dinner and the oven's going to be on and I have chicken breasts in the fridge, I'll pull them out, put salt and pepper on them, put them on a sheet pan, put them in the oven, and then I have shredded chicken that I can eat for lunch all at the same time, right? Okay, I'm sorry if I'm talking fast. I've got a lot of content here. We can take a deep breath because we're done with the process. And now we can repeat and refine. So this is, you know, you planned on Friday afternoon. That's my example. And I bought groceries for the first 2 to 3 days. I made it to Monday afternoon. I rebought groceries for the next set of meals. And then I made it to Friday again. And at that next session, I'm going to think back and look, well, what worked? Like, what didn't work? Did I eat my food? Did I get tired of eating the same thing over again? How can I make adjustments? Did I make a new recipe that I loved that I have not added to Paprika or like whatever meal app that I use? I'm going to do that. And then you repeat the process, right? I'm sure you've heard this before. There's no failure, right? There's only feedback. So we just want to look at this as a growing opportunity and try to figure out what will work for you the next week. I just had this slide in here. This is Jenny. She's one of my past clients, and she is also a mom of some little kids. So that's her older son, but she also had a toddler when we were together. And I just like to throw this up here because Jenny, of course, came to me like all clients. She had issues, like she was constipated, you know, she had PMS stuff, all those things, but she had been trying to do the things that would help. She just couldn't manage the overwhelm that came along with like all the food prep, like figuring out what to make, what was going to be good for her body, those kinds of things. And of course, we did all the functional nutrition stuff, and she got a custom plan, but it was more on the execution side, like really supporting her on simplifying, like how you attack meal planning. How can you make it easy? How can you just reduce complexity? And I think that honestly was her biggest gain from our time together. Of course, her symptoms went away too, which is awesome. But you can see in her quote, like at the bottom, it says, I now have a baseline set of practices and rhythms that support my mental, emotional, and physical well-being. And that's what I want for everyone, is to feel like they have a rhythm and they know how to tap into that rhythm when they need it. Okay, we're almost to the Q&A portion, but I would be like not a good nutritionist if I didn't give you some freaking food hacks, right? Like you need some hacks to make like eating easier. So let's talk about some food hacks that makes eating healthy easier. These are things that I do in my home. I recommend clients do them. Bagged salad kits. Okay, let me please someone agree with me that when people say salads are easy to make, like that's laughable. They are not easy. Do you know how much chopping goes into a salad and all the components, and you have to buy all these different things? It's just too much. It's too much to manage. So I always have salad kits on hand because they have all of that stuff included. And then you can add stuff to them to bulk them up if you want. So I always have like 1 or 2 of these, and I eat them for lunches alongside, some protein. And the downside is the salad dressing sometimes is not the most healthful. Like they can be pretty high in sugar. But if you have a salad dressing that you love, that you make at home, or you have a store-bought one that you really like, who's to say you can't use that, right? With your salad kit. Oh yeah, Trader Joe's has some awesome, I just see in the chat, some awesome salad kits. HEB has some really great salad kits too, guys. And then I'm gonna go down on the side. So pre-made sauces. This is how you make your food taste elevated, but it was really easy, right? Like you can throw some just plain chicken thighs in the air fryer and then add a store-bought like curry, and there you go. You've got some chicken curry that you can eat. So stock your freezer with a lot of these things that elevate the flavor profile, and then you won't get bored of eating the same thing because you can change out the sauces and stuff. Top middle meal kits and frozen meals. Now, I know that a lot of these services are kind of expensive, but there are times and seasons in life where they are so helpful to just have like a month or so where you're getting some meal kits delivered to your house, or maybe you again stock your freezer full of these like Kevin's Natural Foods. They're like sous vide chicken with a sauce. You can just keep them in your freezer, and they have pastas too. Like these are awesome services that you can lean on, and we have so many options these days. So the logos up on the screen are ones that clients of mine have used and have liked, right? So if you feel like you want to try some of these out, by all means, you should do it. Right now, I'm supposed to be like the meal plan person, right? But I just don't feel the inspiration that I normally do right now. So I'm trying out Home Chef so that I can tell my clients about it. And it's been great to have 2 meals a week delivered, and they're not very hard to make. And I didn't have to think about it. Like, amazing. Then we have on the right side of the screen, at least on my right, our bagged veggies. So if you feel like buying like a whole head of cauliflower or broccoli or something is holding you back from actually eating the vegetables, then maybe splurge and get just the pre-chopped bagged veggies. Keep them in your fridge. You don't even have to think about it. They're pre-washed. During your meal prep, just dump all the veggies that you have on a huge sheet pan, sprinkle them with salt and pepper, put some olive oil, maybe some coconut aminos, roast them in the oven for however long you want to their like the texture you want. And then you have veggies you can eat off of all week. All combinations taste good that way, I swear. When I'm planning, I will often just put like the protein, and then I'll say random veggies. And then I legit just pull random veggies out of the fridge and roast them in the oven. Okay, we already talked about Eat the Fridge Fridays. Frozen rice and cauliflower rice. This is like one of my favorite hacks ever. You can get them like frozen rice that you can microwave in the microwave. And they also have cauliflower rice. You can do the same. So I microwave both of them, and then I mix them together I add a little bit of salt and a little bit of butter. And it's like a side dish that you can eat off of for lunches, like for the whole week, because it makes so much. So I highly recommend that little hack. And then coconut aminos is my favorite flavor enhancer. It's kind of like a less salty, sweeter alternative to soy sauce, right? So it's gluten-free. And I love to just sprinkle it on my veggies when I roast them because it just gives them that little bit of flavor. It's almost like you're making an Asian sauce, even though you're really not spending any time at all. You just sprinkled coconut aminos on top. Okay, so those are my like key food hacks. Where do you find healthy recipes that will feed a lot of people? These are my 3 favorite food bloggers, and they all actually do have cookbooks, and their cookbooks are awesome. 1 second, and we're almost to the Q&A, and we can just like focus on questions here. So Fed and Fit, The Defined Dish, and Danielle Walker, all 3 amazing developers of recipes. So highly recommend. And if you do sign up to get my favorite things list, most of the recipes on that are from these 3 bloggers. Okay, so now what? Now what? We have covered so much information. I'm sure you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed. You're like, well, where the heck do I start? I don't even know. That is a totally normal feeling. And I have to tell you, my favorite thing to say to people is little hinges swing big doors. So you don't have to do this whole process, starting next week. You can just pick a couple things that you liked from the presentation and just try those things out, right? And I guarantee you that those little things will give you some benefit in some way, shape, or form. And that's what we want to focus on, are just these little small steps. And over time, you can build momentum that way. And before you know it, you are meal planning and it is going great. So just keep that, in your mind's eye. And then, of course, if you are someone who's like, I want more support, I do have programs available. This is a visual representation of Mama Restore, which is my signature 6-month program. But I take clients through all 6 of these areas in a 6-month time frame, and we really just work on bringing health back into their lives, making them feel their best again. So, questions? Okay, so if you would like the anti-meal plan guidebook and my favorite things PDF, you should be able to hold your phone up to the screen, and I really hope this works. It'll pop up a little form, and then you can just put your name and email, and I will get that to you tomorrow. And with that, what questions do you guys have?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about I see like frozen onions in the store, and I always feel like, I don't know, aren't they, I don't know, waterlogged or something? Do you, and I mean, obviously it seems very easy to potentially freeze some onions. And I've read that people talk about just putting them in the ice cubes or garlic in ice cube trays, in other words, and then you don't have to buy them. But anyway, um, I don't know, but I'm really picky. I don't know. Have you tried frozen onions?
I've bought like the mixes that have my mind's went, like bell peppers and onions and stuff together. And I have to be honest, like frozen veggies in general are just not, they're just not as good as fresh. They just don't taste as good as fresh veggies. So you are accepting this like cost benefit like analysis when you go into it. But honestly, like frozen veggies are so much more healthful than going out and, getting processed food from like wherever and eating your dinner. You just have to accept the fact that it's not like culinary genius and it may not taste as good. You can elevate those frozen veggies a little bit by adding seasoning, right? So you cook them however you want to cook them, and then make sure there's a little bit of butter on there. Make sure you've got a good amount of salt, and eat them that way. Some people, I have not tried this, so I cannot contest if it actually works. I would imagine it wouldn't, but people on Instagram and stuff say it does. You can actually roast frozen veggies and they turn out more of like a roasted texture.
That sounds good. Yeah.
So you might try that. Like put them on a baking sheet and, season them and then put them in the oven and just see what happens.
Thank you.
Yeah. What other questions do you guys have? I see one in the chat, so I can tackle that one. Okay, so please talk about the benefits of sea salt and rock salt. So I'll just talk about salt in general, and then you can let me know if this answers your question. So salt is also one of those things that's kind of gotten a bad rap in recent years, because of course, if you have high blood pressure or things like it's something you want to potentially watch, but it turns out like humans were designed to actually need salt in our lives and our diets. Well, there's lots of reasons, but one of the key ones is salt is a major electrolyte, and that it really does actually help you use your water. And we as humans need a lot of water in our day. And the general rule of thumb is whatever your body weight is, you divide that in two, and that would be the ounces in water you want to strive to drink during a day. Now, you can drink that much water, but if you don't have minerals in your system to help the cells in your body uptake the water, all you're doing is flushing that water out the system, and you're just peeing it into the toilet, right? So if we don't have the right mineral content in our systems, the water is just a little bit wasted. So salt is one of those major electrolytes that we all need in order for that water to move through the cell membrane. Potassium, magnesium, those are some of the other ones. And so I recommend my clients actually put just a little pinch of sea salt in their water when they're drinking throughout the day. And I bet if you're someone who's never done this before, you start doing that, you'll be like, wow, I feel like I have more energy. I feel like I'm not peeing quite as much. This is so weird. But that's just because you might have been lacking in minerals and you couldn't absorb the water. So salt is actually like a really great addition to your habits, healthy habits. I hope that helps. Don't be afraid to salt your food, is what I'm saying. What
We also
other
had
questions?
another question in the chat. It was a little bit earlier, but I think it was from Hanan. And she, joined a little bit later, so she missed a bit of your presentation. And I think, and then Hanan, please let me know if I misinterpret your question. But I think she's just asking, like, what's the program that you use for your plan and how you track it?
The program that I use for my plan, you mean like for meal planning? What's
I
the program
guess
I
so.
use?
I think so. And yeah, and Hanan, feel free to put some
Yeah,
more information in the chat if we're not too clear
I
about
can chime in. Can you hear me?
it.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Yeah, I joined later, so I feel like I guess the question is, do you track that meal plan or how do you do that?
You mean like track the macros of it?
I think so, yeah.
Like the calories and protein and all
Or
that? Is that what
just
you mean?
the schedule you mentioned,
Right,
like
right, right. Okay. So not necessarily tracking the macronutrients, but just tracking the meal plan in general, keeping track of it.
could be both. I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's up to
Do you guys want,
you.
here, let me, I can pull up Paprika and just show it to you really quickly, guys. Let's share my screen. All right, this is Paprika. This is what I use to plan meals throughout the week. This is the system I use. It's called Paprika Recipe Manager. Now, my asterisk on this is I started using this system before I even had my first baby. So that was 8 years ago. And I'm like married to this thing. Like I can't try a new one because I am so deeply stuck using Paprika. So I don't think that this is necessarily the best one out there. Like in 8 years, I'm sure there's been some amazing meal planning apps put out into the app store. So make sure you're checking and shopping around. But I really truly love this one because it's so like there's no bells and whistles. Like it's just plain. I upload, I can go to the browser, I can put in a recipe from a website, it will download the recipe, and then I can categorize it, into one of these folders, beef, chicken, dairy, whatever. You can see the website it comes from here, and it has the recipe, and I can have this on my phone and I cook from it. But the other reason I love it is because again, you can upload your own, right? So I have pictures of cookbooks pages just in here so I don't forget that those recipes exist. And then I also use it for meal planning. So this is actually our meal plan for this week. Yeah, so tonight, like I said, we had that taco skillet. So I made that, I said recreate skillet because this was actually one of those recipes that they sent from Home Chef when I was trying it, and we liked it so much. I was like, oh, I could recreate this on my own. And I did. And so that's what that is. And then I told you guys I have wing it a lot. Like, again, we're just going to wing it, figure out what to eat, and then eat the fridge Friday on Fridays. Like, yeah, so this is kind of an example. But again, I don't know if paprika is the best tool, but it is the one that I've just been using forever, and I'm afraid to migrate out of it. Hope that helps.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, and I read part of the presentation. I don't remember very well the exact words which you have on the options that you present on the services that you offer. But just a recap of that, if someone wants to go with you and have your help, having some options what to eat over the week, in combination of the age you are, the goals that you need. In my case, I'm bloated since 6 in the morning, just drinking water with a pinch of Himalayan salt. So
Yeah.
along of that, I read that you go by 6 months, kind of. How many visits do we have to go to be with you, or do you do some on Zoom, some in face-to-face? And I think, and please correct me, do you also do some evaluation on how we are, the blood test, things like that? Just kind of like.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. So it really depends on the situation. I have a lot of different options for people. And it depends on how much support you actually want, or if you're someone who just wants to be told what to do and like go on your own way. I have stuff for that too. But the option that I showed on the slide was Mama Restore. And that is a 6-month, you don't have to be a mom to do Mama Restore. That's just what I branded it when I started my business. It's a 6-month wellness program. And when you come into the program, there's a lot of data analysis that happens up front so that we can be sure that we're focusing on the right things, right? So I am a practitioner who's here to help you optimize your health. And so I'm not like a traditional, like if you go to someone and you want to lose weight, for example, and they're going to give you calories to eat, protein to eat, whatever, and then help you do that. I don't really take that approach. Instead, I ask, well, why is your body not feeling as well as it should? And is that holding you back from being able to meet your weight loss goals? So let's look into the actual state of your health. And we do that via blood tests, right? So we get your blood drawn. We might look at your microbiome, which is the state of your gut health, via stool testing. We might do hormone testing via urine. So that's called the Dutch hormone panel. Those kinds of things. Then we dive deep into your health history. We look at your lifestyle, like what you're eating, how often you're pooping. Like we get really in there with the TMI. I love TMI. Like there is no such thing in my world. And then depending on the plan that you chose, I will build, a protocol for you with supplements, food recommendations, lifestyle changes, and then I'll support you in implementing those things. And then that's where the plan changes kind of differ, right? So the 6-month one has 13 calls over the 6 months, and we talk in between calls. It's very high touch. Then I have a 4-month option, which is a lot lower touch, that only has 5 calls over 4 months. And then I have mini lab assessments you can do. And then here in 2 months, I'm going to be launching a group program, which might be a good option if you don't want quite as much support, where you get like a blood analysis and then learn about kind of the foundational pieces of health. So does that answer your question?
Yes, actually, you mentioned something about supplements, which is something like, I'm 51, so I know I have to take some time of vitamins, multivitamins. I am low in iron, so I tend to take that since my 30s. But recently, between gynecologists, I am from Monterrey, Mexico. I recently moved to the Austin like 2-3 years ago. I haven't found a like a holistic doctor per se to tackle down some different situations, different scenarios within me, right? Within myself. in my age. So yeah, that also I like it. Like I feel like sometimes I'm taking supplements that maybe I don't need them, but I haven't found the doctor to say why and where to go. So that's why I appreciate that you giving me the whole information. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, if you want to get on a call with me, you just head to my website and there's a form that you fill out, and then we can chat about like your situation more specifically if you want.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Thank
Amber, that brings up, Martha brought up or alluded to your possibly working with other health professionals. If in the course of, your analysis in that, if an MD needs to step in, do you work closely with an osteopath or internist who can address a deeper, medical issue?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of my clients have care teams, right? So I'm just a member of their care team, and I'm not a doctor, so I don't treat or diagnose illness, right? Like when you go to a doctor, like their main job is to identify a pathology, like what is wrong, and is there a solution that most likely is like pharmaceutical in nature that we can get to you to get relief? Like that's what doctors are amazing at. I'm really helpful on the like sort of holistic functional side, like asking, well, why did that get that way in the first place? Like, is the blood sugar need help? Like, do we need to optimize gut health and those kinds of things? And I help you change those habits related to those areas. So we can work in conjunction, together to make sure your symptoms are managed while you're working on changing habits and the root causes that could potentially led to those symptoms. Does that make sense?
Well, that's good information, but not quite what I was asking, because there are very few doctors that are medical doctors that approach health the way you would, or a naturopath, right? So I was asking if you worked with specific medical doctors
Oh, here in
and
Austin, you mean?
specialists. If you yourself, so
Oh, if I had
yeah, if
a
you
specialist.
work with them,
Oh, gotcha.
if you can bring the team, so to speak,
Right.
if you can bring that level of specialization, if one of your clients needs that,
I have like
because
referral folk, like it
Mhm.
depends on what's going on.
Because the thing
Most,
is, most medical doctors don't get it.
well, yeah,
They
you
a
said it,
lot of
not
them.
me, but
Yeah,
yeah.
it's not, it's hard to find a medical doctor that would work with you at this level, right?
Right. I
So
mean, there
that's why I
is
was
some.
wondering if you work closely with somebody. The only person that I know of who's a medical doctor that approaches health kind of the way you do is Dr. Eleanor Womack. She's an internist, but she's like $3,500 her first visit, and she doesn't take insurance.
Yeah.
So that's not an option. So it's been very, very hard for me to find any medical doctor that could be a PCP that would basically back up some of what a practitioner like yourself is trying to do.
Yeah, it's hard to find a good like functional medicine doctor. I unfortunately don't have one in my back pocket in Austin. Most often people come to me, they already have doctors, and then I'm working from one side and they're working from the other. And then a lot of the other referrals that I do out are for things like therapy or pelvic floor PT, stuff like that. So I haven't come across one yet, but of course I'm always looking to add them into my referral like network.
Yeah, that's the kind of ultimately what I was getting at is if there is an issue that has to be addressed by a medical doctor, could you direct, you know, uh, us to someone, and would that person be available within a year? Because so many of
I
these
don't
people,
know.
they have to,
Yeah.
yeah, that you have
Yeah.
to schedule out so far with them. Anyway, I don't mean to go off on too much of a tangent on that, but it is so hard to find an MD that approaches health the way you do.
Yeah, I agree. It is really hard. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I'm looking for a high protein breakfast that require just minimal effort in the morning.
Awesome. Are you open to protein powders? Using protein
Yeah,
powders?
I don't know. I guess so, like smoothies with protein powders in them.
Yeah, so, or, I mean, that's like the traditional way you can use protein powders is in a smoothie, but you can use them in so many other ways. So one of my favorite things to make is overnight oats. I think I mentioned that a few times on the call. And in that PDF, if you put in your name and email, I have my my favorite recipe for overnight oats is listed there. And it's basically just like, you know, a serving of oatmeal and then a protein powder in there and then a little bit of yogurt, like low fat dairy yogurt. That's very high protein, right? Those two things combined, it's going to get you to over 30 grams of protein for breakfast. Then you add a liquid so that it can be absorbed. You can add other things in there like chia seeds, flax meal, you know, whatever you want to amp up your nutrition. You just stir that up, put it in your fridge overnight, and then you have this like really yummy, creamy thing that you can eat in the morning. And you can make those for several days in advance. But protein powder can also be added to muffins and it can be added to pancakes and like all kinds of things in that way. So if you're craving that like carby hit, you can do that. Of course, there's always, you know, like eggs and sausage, but I guess one of those myths, like from the beginning, is a single egg or two eggs is not enough protein for a grown woman, right? So that's 12 grams of protein, and we need to be eating about 30, especially in the mornings when we start our day. So 2 eggs plus a serving of like chicken sausage alongside, or maybe you do have a little bit of yogurt to kind of round it out. What else do we eat? Hashes are great. So you can put like sweet potatoes and things together in a skillet, add sausages, and then put a fried egg on top. That should get you pretty close to like a higher protein breakfast. What else? Egg muffins, right? So you can make, spend like 30 minutes on a weekend and mix up some egg with sausage in there, maybe some bacon, some veggies, put those in a muffin tin, bake those, and then pull 2 of those out, you know, in the morning to eat for breakfast. You can always amp up your morning breakfast protein levels by adding flavorless collagen peptides to coffee. So if you're someone who drinks coffee in the morning, you can add that. It's flavorless, dissolves, you don't know it's there. That's, you know, 12 to 15 grams, boom, right there in that one serving. So hopefully that gives you some ideas.
Lots of them. Thank you.
Yeah.
What was the thing that you said you can put in your coffee?
Collagen peptides.
Okay. That's very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, collagen. So it's just a form of protein powder. It is a flavorless, easily dissolvable form of a protein powder. The reason why it's different from regular protein powder is it's not like a full amino acid profile, but it doesn't matter really because if you eat animal meat or eat protein at other meals, you're going to get that covered. So collagen is just a nice way to support your hair growth, your nail growth, your skin, and get extra protein. And you cannot know it's there when you put it in coffee. I mean, but I do recommend like a frother wand. I don't know if you have one of those, like spins it up. Otherwise you might get clumps and it's gross.
Okay, gotcha. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
you can get
definitely consider
collagen. You can get collagen peptides at Target. There's brands there. Vital Proteins is one that you see a lot. It's like this blue canister. Go to the
Okay.
pharmacy section, Vital Proteins, this blue canister. You'll see it says collagen peptides. That's where I would start.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. And I'm actually gonna try and transition to like less meat. Do you have any recommendations on how to find that protein without having to eat meat?
Yeah, I mean, protein powders are really going to be your friend. Like collagen peptides, that is derived from beef isolate. So that might not be the choice that you want to use. However, there are like a lot of great pea protein blends, you know, hemp protein. There's other protein sources. So I would try a bunch of the powders to see which ones you actually like, because some of them can be chalky, some of them not so good. And then make sure you're getting like 1 scoop of that a day, right? And then apart from that, just get really good at making sure you're getting enough like beans in there with quinoa, like making kind of combinations of the different things together. I'm really not great at sourcing like vegan and vegetarian protein sources because I don't usually do that in my practice. So unfortunately, I think that those are like my best suggestions at this point. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, that you're all good. Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. What other questions do you guys have?
I'm sorry, go ahead, Medicine.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Earlier you were mentioning like a method like putting salt in your water. Do you have any other healthy practices that you can recommend like that?
Yeah, like my hack style stuff.
Mhm.
Love it. Yeah. Okay, so I'll give you a few here, but if you go to my website and on the homepage, actually, if you go to my Instagram, do you have an Instagram account?
I do.
Okay, if you follow me on Instagram, go to my profile, and then in the links, you can download the self-care guide. Download that because there's all kinds of health hacks in there, and salt and water is going to be one of them that's listed there. So making sure you're salting your water, making sure you're getting enough water, right? So what does your body weight, divide that into? That's like the minimum. If you sweat a lot, if you're breastfeeding, any kind of those things, then you're going to need more water. Another thing is avoid having caffeine on an empty stomach if you can, because what caffeine tends to do, it doesn't do this to everyone, but mostly across the board, it will just spike your blood sugar and make you feel anxious, right? And we don't want that because that is an unnecessary spike in your blood sugar. So in order to prevent that, we want to have food in your stomach, or we want to have like protein powder right in the coffee so that can reduce that blood sugar spike that goes along with caffeine. That's a big one. What are some ones? Avoid eating naked carbs is a big one that I will harp on with my clients. So it's not about the carbs in general. Like carbs are super healthy for you. They're a healthful food. It's about if you're eating them all by themselves. So if you're in between breakfast and lunch and you're starving and you're like, I'm going to go have a bag of potato chips, those are basically pure carbohydrate. And what does that do? It spikes your blood sugar, right? And we don't really want your blood sugar to be spiked like that because it can cause inflammation and all kinds of things down the road, make your energy levels feel like, oh, wonky all over the place. So if you're going to have carbs, always try to pair them with a little bit of protein and fat. So if you're going to have potato chips, maybe also have some hummus, right? If you're going to be more plant-based, like have some hummus to go with the potato chips, and maybe also a little bit of fiber too, like maybe some carrots to go along with it. That's going to kind of blunt the blood sugar spike and then just make your energy levels a little bit more stable throughout the day. What other ones? Yeah, there's a lot of little things like that you can do, and I think just go download that self-care guide because it'll give you a whole list of things that you can choose from.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That potato chip one was extremely helpful. I actually ate like a bag of potato chips by themselves today, so I'm definitely gonna be more mindful about that.
I mean,
I did not know that.
it has nothing to do with your morality. Like you're a great person if you eat potato chips like on their own. But if you're someone who is struggling with just kind of energy swings, that could be one of your root cause issues. It's just you're kind of riding this roller coaster, right? And those naked carbs can cause that.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate it.
I just wanted to jump in. Paula, I definitely want you to be able to answer your question, but I think that might be the last question for now, just because we're at time. And then if you guys have any more questions at all, feel free to like reach out to Amber on our website as well.
Okay.
Yeah, but Paula, go ahead and answer your question. I just wanted to let you know.
How this kind of is related to what you were just talking about as far as, energy and that. A lot of us struggle with depression and low energy. So if you could give two or three go-to tips if we're starting to feel, kind of limp or, we just need a perk. What are some good ways, safe ways for us to take care of that?
Making sure you're eating enough protein is going to be really helpful to stabilize energy levels. So avoiding naked carbs, eating enough protein. And most women are under eating protein. If you went and, tracked for a couple days, you'd be probably shocked at how little amount of protein that you're getting in your diet. in general, science is now kind of pointing towards that if you're a grown woman, you should be eating at least 100 grams of protein a day. And that is way more protein than what you think it is. So that's one. So having protein at every meal, right? Making sure you're having some kind of protein on your plate at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And when you're having snacks, you're having protein alongside your carbs, and maybe even having a protein powder at some point throughout the day. So that would be one for energy. Number two, if you're feeling like you're in a slump, say it's afternoon and you'd normally like reach for a coffee or something to perk up, how about before you do that, try electrolytes. So there are a lot of fancy electrolyte powders out on the market. And remember, these are minerals that help you absorb water, right? And they will help you also have more energy. So if you want to buy an electrolyte powder, there's going to be some on that My Favorite Things PDF if you download that. But my favorite ones are like Element. You might have seen those around. Noon, those tablets you can drop in your water. Have one of those instead, and then wait 30 minutes and see if that like help kind of boost your energy. If you don't have an electrolyte powder, just add salt to your water, right? So just add a pinch of like sea salt to like your big glass of water and drink that. See if that helps. What else? Yeah, I mean, I think those are the key ones. So blood sugar is going to be the key driver of energy issues, depression, anxiety, like mental health and all of that. A lot of that also can be driven by gut problems. So if you're someone who's constipated, who's not going to the bathroom a lot, I would also try to troubleshoot that and see if you can, optimize your digestion a little bit. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I've always been a big fan of getting enough protein, but I had no idea that we needed that much.
Yeah. It's really because muscle now turns out is kind of what people are calling like the organ of longevity, right? The more
Really?
muscle mass you have, the better health you are going to experience. And the way you maintain muscle as you age is by eating enough protein and by lifting weights. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, if you are wanting to start exercising too, I would say don't worry about cardio, don't worry about any of that, just start lifting weights. That would be the one thing that I would focus on first, and eating enough protein.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Amber, so much for joining us today. I think we all learned so much from you, and we have so much to take away from, and we really just appreciate you, just giving your time and expertise to us. I'm gonna go ahead and hit stop recording, and then we can kind of do the quick raffle real quick. So 1 second.